So this is how it starts, not with a whistle or a buzzer beater, but with a headline that echoes like betrayal across every corner of the WNBA. DeWanna Bonner, a seasoned veteran, stepped in front of cameras on national television and dropped a statement so jarring it sent shockwaves through an already fractured fan base. "I wouldn't change a thing." Let that sink in. After vanishing from the Indiana Fever midseason, after pocketing a hefty paycheck, while fans begged for answers, Bonner looked straight into the camera and doubled down. No remorse, no accountability, just a chilling calm that made every Fever fan's blood boil. What could have been a moment of reflection turned into a masterclass in deflection. And that statement didn't come from a rookie, from someone finding their place in a league built on grit and community. This came from a 37-year-old professional, a veteran who was supposed to model excellence and leadership. Instead, she rebranded herself as a victim in her own saga of misdirection. Her journey, as she called it, was something to accept, not question. But behind that polished phrasing was a truth, so bitter fans could taste it. This wasn't a journey. It was a scheme, a cash grab dressed up as a soul-searching detour. And the people who paid the price weren't millionaires or front office execs. They were the everyday fans who bought her jersey and believed every word she said when she arrived. You could hear the disbelief in every post-game podcast, every sports talk show that replayed that interview. Because no matter how she tried to spin it, this wasn't just a matter of poor performance. It was about trust. DeWanna Bonner didn't just break a contract. She broke the spirit of a city that opened its arms to her. Fans who had been through season after season of disappointment thought they were finally getting a veteran who would ride with them into a new era. Instead, they got ghosted with nothing more than a press release and a vague personal reasons tag. And now, she wants to tell us it all happened for a reason? It didn't happen for a reason. It happened by design. And the more Bonner talks, the more obvious it becomes. Her ESPN appearance wasn't just tone deaf. It was a slap in the face to every person who poured their time, money, and energy into supporting her during her short, lackluster stint in Indiana. Her calm delivery didn't mask the arrogance. It amplified it. Because when you accept praise at the start and then dodge responsibility at the end, you don't come off wise. You come off entitled. And fans aren't falling for it. But the damage wasn't just emotional. It was tangible. Bonner didn't just let people down. She exploited their hope. She signed a contract. She cashed checks, and when it was time to deliver, she disappeared. What's worse, she's rewriting the story like she was the one wronged. The audacity is staggering, and yet it's unfolding right before our eyes. If this was just about basketball, maybe it could be forgiven, but this was about integrity. And Bonner didn't just fumble it. She dropped it and walked away like it never mattered. What followed was one of the ugliest betrayal arcs in recent WNBA memory. As Bonner collected her salary from Indiana, she vanished for 5 games, citing personal reasons that were never clarified. Then, without warning, she emerged in Phoenix, smiling, rejuvenated, and ready to play. Fans were stunned. This wasn't just a departure. It felt like a heist. She'd worn the Fever jersey, nodded through media day interviews, and promised a culture shift. But in reality, she was already halfway out the door, with her eyes fixed on a reunion with her fiancée Alyssa Thomas and a team that fit her preferences. And now, with that chilling ESPN interview replaying across social media like a broken record, fans are connecting the dots. This wasn't some innocent series of unfortunate events. It was a calculated maneuver, a betrayal wrapped in professionalism. The fact that Bonner could look back on her time in Indiana and not express even a shred of regret only made the wound deeper. This wasn't accountability. It was manipulation, plain and simple. She wasn't just absent, she was plotting. And let's talk about that absence. Bonner didn't just fail to meet expectations, she ghosted them entirely. On paper, she averaged a pitiful 7.1 points per game, alongside laughable 3.8 rebounds and 1.6 assists. These aren't just subpar stats. They're the numbers of someone checked out, someone jogging up and down the court, avoiding contact, firing bricks, and hoping no one noticed. But Indiana noticed. The fans noticed. And now that she's thriving in Phoenix, the contrast is glaring. Because let's not pretend this is about a sudden return to form. In just her second game with Phoenix, Bonner dropped 22 points and 11 rebounds, numbers that would have made her a hero in Indianapolis. So, where was this energy when she was with the Fever? Where was that fire when the team needed her most? The truth is, It was never about ability. It was about willingness. Bonner had the game. She just chose not to use it. For Indiana, at least, that performance shift wasn't growth. It was a confession, a silent admission that she was never all in with the Fever. And what message does that send to every other player watching? That it's okay to bail when things get tough? That you can coast until your ideal situation magically opens up? Because that's exactly what this looks like. And the most painful part? Indiana's fans didn't deserve this. They weren't just bystanders. They were investors. Emotional investors who bought the hype, believed in the vision, and showed up night after night, waiting for Bonner to show up too. When fans support a player, it's not just about stats. It's about connection. It's about community. Bonner stood before that community, smiled, praised the crowd, and talked about mentoring Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston. She promised to be the glue, the veteran presence, the one who would help steer a young team into greatness. But those promises, they weren't rooted in commitment. They were performance lines. And when the script changed, when she lost her starting spot and had to come off the bench, she walked off set without warning. And that's the real heartbreaker, because it wasn't a slow decline or an unavoidable injury. It was a choice. Bonner quit. She made up excuses. She stopped showing up. And the second she got what she wanted in Phoenix, she reappeared as a player everyone had been hoping for. It wasn't a resurgence. It was a betrayal of trust, of effort, of everything Indiana believed she stood for. And as she suits up in Phoenix, the crowd cheers, unaware or uncaring, that their game came at the cost of another city's heartbreak. Even more insulting, the Fever gave her every chance. They made excuses. They hoped. They waited. When her performance dipped, they didn't cut her. They gave her room to improve. And what did she do? She turned that grace into leverage. Instead of earning back her minutes, she turned on the team and disappeared. That's not professionalism. That's sabotage. And while Indiana was left scrambling, Bonner thrived on a team where she could finally call the shots. All of this leads to one damning realization. Indiana got played. The front office structured their cap space and roster with Bonner in mind. They believed in her veteran leadership, and she took that belief, twisted it into a temporary paycheck, and ran. Now, the Fever aren't just down a player. They're down trust, down reputation. Because if a player like Bonner can manipulate her way out of a deal with no consequences, what stops others from doing the same? And now, fans are watching as Bonner spins a tale of a misunderstood star, hoping no one connects the dots between her poor effort and her preferred destination. But we see the pattern. We see the timing. The personal reasons just happen to coincide with a shift in the lineup, with Lexi Hull stepping up and outperforming expectations. Bonner wasn't sidelined. She was out, and instead of fighting for a role, she folded, disappeared, re-emerged where the spotlight suited her. The irony? Bonner once claimed she was fine coming off the bench. After all, she's won Sixth Woman of the Year 3 times. But her actions betrayed that humility. The moment her starting status slipped, she vanished. No explanation. No fight. Just distance. That's not the behavior of someone who's focused on the team. That's someone focused on control. And when she lost it, she cut the cord. Meanwhile, Indiana fans are left piecing together a puzzle they never should have had to solve. And Phoenix fans? They're celebrating like Bonner just rose from the ashes, ignoring the scorched earth she left behind. This isn't redemption. This is erasure. And if we're not careful, it sets a precedent that says winning justifies everything, even betrayal. But let's not forget how this story began. DeWanna Bonner didn't walk into Indiana as some reluctant journeyman. She arrived with open arms, singing the praises of the Fever's loyal fan base, basking in the record-breaking attendance, and claiming she'd never played in front of such electric crowds. Her arrival was hyped like a cultural moment, one that would pair season experience with rising talent like Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston. For a moment, it felt like Indiana was becoming the epicenter of something bigger than basketball. It felt like hope, and Bonner? She was supposed to be the anchor. But as we now know, that anchor didn't hold. Beneath the surface of every post-game compliment and locker room interview, the tension was already brewing. Bonner said all the right things, but her game said something else. Missed threes, slow rotations, jogging instead of sprinting. Her presence on the court became a haunting contradiction to her media day smiles. And when fans tried to make sense of the gap between her promise and her performance, They gave her grace. They gave her time. They gave her the benefit of the doubt. What they didn't know, Bonner was already plotting the exit. And that exit wasn't just an escape. It was a rebranding. One that unfolded with near cinematic precision. The moment Lexi Hull began to shine, the moment the starting lineup shifted and Bonner found herself facing competition, the mysterious personal reasons appeared. No press conference, no detailed statement, just silence, a disappearance. And then, like magic, she reemerged in Phoenix. And not just as a rotational player. No, Bonner arrived with purpose, with energy, with numbers that made her Indiana stint look like a bad dream. That's the gut punch. Because those numbers, 22 points, 11 rebounds, aren't just stats. They're proof. Proof that Bonner could have reformed. Proof that she had it in her all along. Proof that what Indiana got wasn't a veteran on the decline. It was a veteran on cruise control. And fans knew it. They saw it. They felt the betrayal not just in her absence, but in her sudden Phoenix resurgence. She didn't improve. She flipped the switch. And that switch was always there, waiting for the right moment. Waiting for her preferred city. Waiting for Alyssa Thomas. And here's where the story shifts from betrayal to warning. Because what Bonner pulled off wasn't just personal. It was systemic. She turned Indiana into a placeholder, a pit stop, a means to a very calculated end. And the scariest part? It worked. She got the paycheck. She got the escape. She got the new team, the renewed stats, and the loving arms of her partner on the court. Meanwhile, Indiana got the empty locker, the broken trust, and the headlines that now define their offseason. And if you think this doesn't send a message to every other player in the league, you're not paying attention. Because now we're facing a new, uncomfortable reality. One where loyalty isn't just optional, it's a punchline. One where veteran players can manipulate the system, undermine their own teams, and still get rewarded with fresh starts and clean slates. DeWanna Bonner didn't just bend the rules. She broke them, and she did with a smirk and a soundbite that haunts every Fever fan who cheered for her. I wouldn't change a thing. That line wasn't just disrespectful. It was surgical. It cut to the core of what makes team sports sacred: commitment, accountability, and mutual respect. Now, all eyes are on Indiana's front office. Fans aren't just hurt, they're livid. They want to know how this happened. How a player with that much leverage, that much visibility, was allowed to disappear and reappear with no consequence. They want to know why no statement was issued, why no answers were given, and why Bonner's departure was treated like an afterthought instead of the betrayal it was. And worst of all, they want to know if the silence from the top means it's going to happen again. The trust isn't just broken, it's crumbling. Because when a franchise allows something like this to go unchecked, it tells players they can walk away without finishing what they started. It tells fans their support is one-sided. And it tells rising stars like Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston that even in a league trying to evolve, the culture of convenience still trumps the culture of commitment. If Indiana doesn't speak up, doesn't take a stand, then it sends a clear message. This isn't a team, it's a stepping stone. And what does that do to a locker room? What happens when young players look around and realize the vets aren't there to lead, they're there to leverage? It fractures trust from the inside out. Suddenly, every player's commitment is in question. Every trade, every contract, every sideline whisper becomes suspect. And that's how cultures collapse. Not with scandals, but with silence. And right now, Indiana is definitely quiet. Meanwhile, Bonner thrives. She smiles in post-game interviews. She takes the court with renewed energy. And the cameras? They capture none of the damage left behind. Phoenix fans cheer. National broadcasters move on. But for Indiana, the scar remains. The jersey sails. The missed minutes. The empty promises. All of it tells the story of a player who mastered the art of looking loyal while planning her escape. And now that escape is complete. She's at everything she wanted. And Indiana is left cleaning up the mess. This wasn't about basketball IQ or veteran chemistry. This was about personal comfort, about crafting a narrative that let Bonner save face while abandoning a fan base that gave her everything. And she played it perfectly. The timing, the interviews, the optics. It all lined up with almost surgical precision. She didn't stumble into Phoenix. She engineered it. And the only ones who didn't see it coming were the ones who trusted her most, Indiana Fever fans. So where does this leave us? With a franchise in crisis, a fan base in mourning, and a league at a crossroads. Because this saga isn't just a blip in the WNBA season. It's a defining moment, a test of whether professionalism still matters, whether accountability still matters, and whether the next generation of stars will learn from Bonner's example or repeat it. Because if this is the new norm, then the WNBA has a serious problem. A problem that no press conference can fix. A problem that no box score can disguise. A problem rooted in the erosion of something deeper than contracts or rotations. It's about trust. And once that's gone, no stat line, no highlight reel, no championship run can bring it back. Until Indiana demands better. Until the league demands better. We're going to keep seeing this play out over and over again. Because what DeWanna Bonner left behind in Indiana wasn't just an empty locker or a disgruntled front office. She left behind a blueprint, a roadmap for how to disappear with grace, reappear with applause, and rewrite the truth without ever saying sorry. And unless someone stands up and calls it what it is, professional sabotage dressed up as personal growth, it's only going to get worse. So go ahead, replay that interview. Watch her say it again. I wouldn't change a thing. Just don't forget what it cost. Because in the end, this wasn't about basketball. It wasn't even about fit. It was about proximity, about convenience, about being closer to her fiancé. And that's fine. Love is powerful. But don't dress it up as destiny. Don't paint betrayal as fate. This was a calculated move, and Indiana was collateral damage. The silence from the Fever brass only confirms what fans fear most, that this could have been prevented. And that silence, that might be the most deafening part of all. No statement, no pushback, no attempt to defend the franchise, just a vacuum of leadership where accountability should have been. And now, every free agent considering Indiana is watching, and they're wondering, if Bonner got away with this, what else can you get away with? At a time when the Fever are trying to build around Caitlin Clark and create a culture of excellence, this scandal isn't just a bump in the road, it's a warning flare. Because if Indiana can't enforce standards, if it lets veteran players manipulate the system, then the foundation is already cracking. And once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. So what now? The fans want answers. They want change. They want to know that the next time a player dons that jersey, they'll mean it. Because right now, the only legacy Bonner left behind in Indiana isn't a highlight reel. It's a how-to guide for quitting without consequences. And unless someone steps in to rewrite that narrative, it'll be the only one that sticks.